That is not who he is. He needs to remember his life.
I don't want to be a part of this experiment anymore.
I can't do it anymore.
Let me out of here!
You should hear what they say about him at court. How he mistakes the earth for a side of beef.
But what exactly had Heisenberg said? That's what everyone wanted to know, then and forever after.
I am a man of science, not society. Now go study my brilliance. Go!
If you enjoy science and great storytelling, we've got you covered.
To science!
To science!
This is the Relativity Series from LA Theater Works and the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation, bridging science and the arts in the modern world. Hi again, we're back with another science-themed story in the Relativity Series. I'm Ron Lipkin, senior podcast and radio producer for LA Theater Works. If you're like me and so many other family tree-obsessed people, you've sent a sample of your saliva to a testing lab to get the readout on where your ancestors came from. It's an incredible science, and it would never have been possible without the discovery of DNA. Now, you may know that James Watson and Francis Crick are credited with uncovering the double helix structure of DNA, which has got to be one of the 20th century's greatest scientific discoveries. But how about Rosalind Franklin? Ever heard of her? She was a gifted research scientist whose skill with X-ray diffraction first uncovered what's called the secret of life. And this is her story. Here's part one of Photograph 51 by Anna Ziegler, directed by Michael Hackett, Susan Albert Loewenberg producing director. Starring Miriam Margolyes as Rosalind Franklin, Matthew Arkin as Casper, Maxwell Caulfield as Wilkins, John Matthews as Watson, Darren Richardson as Gosling, and Nick Toren as Crick. Produced by LA Theater Works.
You want to know what the atmosphere was like in the lab? We made the invisible visible. We could see atoms, not only see them, manipulate them, move them around. We were so powerful. Our instruments felt like extensions of our own bodies. We could see everything, really see it, except sometimes what was right in front of us. When I was a child, I used to draw shapes overlapping like endless Venn diagrams. My parents said, "Rosalind, maybe you should draw people. Don't you want to draw our family, our little dog?" I didn't. I drew patterns of the tiniest repeating structures. And when I first got to use my father's camera, I went outside and found 4 leaves. I arranged them carefully on the curb. But the photograph I took was not of leaves. You see, nothing is ever just one thing. This was a map, rivers, the veins of a barren land. And when I wanted to become a scientist, my father said, "Ah, I see." Then he said, "No."
Yes, I remember. It was a particularly cold winter in London. January 1951. And at the same time in Paris.
Not again, Wilkins. Really?
In Paris, Rosalind Franklin was packing up to move.
Why tell a story about someone who barely made a dent?
We like this story, Watson.
Not this version, Crick.
I don't care whether you like it, Jim. It isn't about you.
But it should be.
No, not this time. I agree with Dr. Wilkins.
Thank you, Gosling.
On the other hand, do you really think it's wise to...
Wise to what?
I just don't want you to...
I'm fine.
Fine. You all do what you want, but it'll end the same way.
No, it won't. It can't. Francis.
There was a party for her at the Laboratoire Central. Everyone stayed late into the night, drinking and telling stories, entreating her not to leave.
But she'd just won a fellowship at King's College London, and one didn't turn down a job at King's, especially since there was a chance she'd get to work in the field of genetics.
A field in which the possibilities were, well, they were endless, in which the promise of personal and professional fulfillment was tangible.
Casper, what are you doing here?
So she wrote a polite letter requesting the instrument she'd require.
Dear Dr. Wilkins, I require for one an X-ray generating tube. For another, a camera specially made so that the temperature inside it can be carefully controlled. Otherwise the solution will change during its exposure, and, Dr. Wilkins, you know as well as I do, that just won't do. Finally, if at all possible, I'd like to know when this order will be placed, so that if need be, I can request a few minor modifications. Yours sincerely, Dr. Rosalind Franklin.
Dear Miss Franklin, you are ever so cordial. But I must warn you, we at King's are very serious. So serious, in fact, and intent on being on the cutting edge, as they say, that we will be moving your research into another area entirely.
Excuse me, Dr. Wilkins?
Yes, you will instead be working on deciphering the structure of nucleic acids.
Is that so?
You see, I have recently found that fibres of deoxyribose nucleic acid, derived from the Ziegler material, give remarkably good fibre diagrams, and they are shown to be crystalline in shape. Therefore, it now seems evident that King's needs to push forward in this endeavour, in determining through crystallography, at which you are quite expert.
Thank you, I am.
Yes, no one will argue with that. Anyway, we need to push forward in determining why it is that in the chromosome, the number of purines and pyrimidines come in pairs, so that we can then determine how transcription works, so that we can then determine...
I know what you're talking about.
Yes, I suppose you do. Then I'll leap straight to the point. You'll be assisting me in my study of the Ziegler DNA from Switzerland. Everyone wanted it, and yet somehow Randall got it, the old rogue. I don't know how he did it.
I don't think I heard you correctly.
You did. We have the Ziegler stock. Quite a coup, really, when you think about it.
But did you say I'd be assisting you?
Yes, and my doctoral student, Ray Gosling, will assist you.
Hello, Miss Franklin. It's a pleasure.
But Randall told me I'd be heading up the study, that I'd be in charge of my own work here. Surely there's been some misunderstanding.
No misunderstanding. Circumstances changed. We recently took X-ray photos of DNA that convinced me and Randall that we must move forward with nucleic acid, as opposed to protein, to get to the bottom of what some are calling the secret of life, to the way genetic information is replicated and encoded. In other words, if we discover this structure, we could discover the way the world works, Miss Franklin. Can you imagine that?
Dr. Wilkins, I will not be anyone's assistant.
Is that right?
I don't like others to analyse my data, my work. I work best when I work alone. If, for whatever reason, I am forced into a different situation, I should feel that I came here under false pretences.
I see. Then perhaps we could think of our work together as a kind of partnership. Surely that will suit you.
I suppose it doesn't matter whether or not it suits me, does it?
Well, that went well.
See? She was meant to be Wilkins' assistant, and therein lay the problem. She misunderstood the terms. And after that, the rest was inevitable. The race got lost there, in a single moment.
No, Watson. Nothing is inevitable.
And the truth is, Randall told her she was to be in charge of her own group. She was quite clear with me about that.
Well, that's not what we heard.
You heard what you wanted to hear, Francis. One of those specialties of human nature.
Is it really absolutely necessary that you be here too?
Anyway, we began. It was grey in London in January. Wilkins, Miss Franklin and I were working in a, well, it must be said, dank cellar in the Strand. There were no two ways about that.
Could it be any gloomier here? Dr. Wilkins, as your partner, I might entreat you to find us a more hospitable working environment.
The labs are more nicely appointed in Paris, then.
There's no comparison.
You know, not all of us felt we should leave England when she needed us most.
Thank you, Dr. Wilkins, for your patriotic spirit. I can assure you, however, that I was doing much more for British society after the war by working on coal molecules in France than I would have been had I been in London eating rationed food and parking my car on a site cleared by a bomb that used to be someone's home.
I was only joking. Really?
It's true, he's quite the chokester.
And aren't you the same Wilkins who worked on the Manhattan Project in California during the war?
For a few months' time, yes.
Maybe you're aware of the fact that not a single female scientist from Britain was given a research position during wartime.
Is that so?
I'll have you know that nuclear force is not something of which I approve.
Then I suppose it's good no one asked you to work on it.
Excuse me?
At any rate, you lot never do seem to approve of it.
I'm not sure I understand what you're driving at.
No, he...
All I meant was the irony.
What irony?
Just that people worked hard to come up with these ways to save, well, the Jews. And then all you hear back from them is how they don't approve. It feels a little...
You're absolutely right that the Jews should be in a more grateful frame of mind these days.
All right, Rosie.
My name is Rosalind, but you can call me Miss Franklin. Everyone else does.
Fine.
Of course, I'd prefer Dr. Franklin, but that doesn't seem to be done here, does it, Mr. Wilkins?
Dr. Wilkins?
Dr. Wilkins, I don't joke. I take my work as seriously as I trust you do.
Of course I do.
How do you like that? It's nearly 2 already.
No need for constant updates on the time, Gosling. There's a clock right there. We can see perfectly well.
No, I was just saying, suggesting that perhaps we might take our lunch.
We've been having so much fun that the time has really flown, hasn't it, Dr. Wilkins?
Has it?
So, where shall we go? I'm famished, actually. Dr. Wilkins?
Oh, I'd love to have lunch, but...
But what?
I eat in the senior common room.
Well, that's where we'll go, then.
That's the thing.
What's the thing?
It's for men only.
I beg your pardon?
Only men can eat there.
Is that so?
It is.
Well, go to it, then.
Are you sure?
Oh, absolutely.
All right, then. I won't be long.
The next hour was... well, it wasn't what you traditionally think of as fun.
It's absurd, isn't it? Archaic.
What is?
Well, this business of the senior common room, of course.
I suppose, but you can't worry about it.
I can worry over whatever I choose to worry over, Mr. Gosling.
It's not like biophysicists have such great conversations at meals anyway. They tend to talk about the work. They never take a break.
But those are precisely the conversations I need to have. Scientists make discoveries over lunch, Gosling.
If you say so.
Can I ask you a question?
Of course.
What's he like, Wilkins? You've worked for him for a few years already.
And now they've moved me along to you. The conveyor belt chugs along, but doctoral students are good people to work with. We're like liquids. We take the shape of any vessel into which we're poured.
What do you mean by that?
That you don't have to worry about a thing. My allegiance will be to you. You're my advisor now.
Well, good. I would have expected as much.
Wilkins is fine. Between you and me, he's a bit of a stiff, but I'm sure you two will get along. He's easy enough to get along with, and he works hard. You know, no wife to go home to, no children. He devotes himself completely.
Oh, so do I.
What does Mr. Franklin have to say about that?
There is no Mr. Franklin. Unless, of course, you're referring to my father.
No, I wasn't. I'm sorry, I really didn't mean to offend. I didn't mean to...
Hello, Gosling. And Miss Franklin.
And how was your lunch, Dr. Wilkins?
Just fine. Thank you for asking.
Well, I'm glad that on my first day here, you didn't take a break from your daily routine to accompany me somewhere where I was permitted to dine.
But you insisted...
And I'm glad you went ahead and did what you wanted to do.
Miss Franklin, let me be clear about something. I was looking forward to your arrival here.
He truly was.
That's enough, Gosling.
But you talked about it all the time, how her chemistry and your theory would be the perfect match.
My chemistry and your theory? Are you suggesting I don't have theory, Dr. Wilkins?
Of course not.
Good.
He was just fantasizing about a life free of all the menial tasks associated with biochemistry.
Enough, Gosling.
Oh, my work is menial, is it?
No. And all I wanted to say was that I just don't like that things have got off to a rocky start. I'd like to begin again.
All right.
All right.
I'm Dr. Rosalind Franklin. It's a pleasure to meet you.
It's a pleasure to meet you too.
I've heard so much about you.
And you.
Hi, I'm Ray Gosling. I'll be your doctoral student.
Unnecessary, Gosling.
Yes, Gosling, we've already met.
Can I ask you, Miss Franklin, what you're most looking forward to here at King's?
I think, Dr. Wilkins, I'm looking forward to dispensing with these games, at which point I can begin taking photographs of crystals of DNA. It wasn't what I came here to do, but I'll do it with the cameras I choose from what's here and the sample from the Cygnus stock. You can use whatever's left and reintroduce yourself to me whenever you like.
Oh, don't just leave.
But she was gone.
I see.
Did it really happen that way? Were you quite so...
I wasn't anything. I was perfectly fine. A bit of a stiff, perhaps, but otherwise...
Oh, did you hear that bit?
Yes, I heard that bit.
Well, I don't think you're at all... You're not at all... Well, OK, you can be quite stiff, actually.
Good morning, Dr. Wilkins.
Good morning, Miss Franklin.
Did you have a nice weekend?
It was fine, I suppose. How was yours?
Fine.
Did you do anything interesting?
Yesterday, I went to the matinee of The Winter's Tale at the Phoenix. Peter Brook directed it.
That's funny.
How is that funny?
I almost went to see the very same performance. I was in the vicinity, walking, and I passed the Phoenix and I very nearly went in.
It was sold out?
No, I never got that far.
Then where's the coincidence?
It's just that our paths so nearly crossed. Was it any good?
Oh, yes, very.
The great difference, you know, between The Winter's Tale and the story on which it is based, Pandosto, is that in Shakespeare's version, the heroine survives.
John Gielgud played Leontes. He really was very good. Very lifelike, very good. When Hermione died, even though it was his fault, I felt for him, I truly did.
And who played Hermione?
Oh, I don't remember. She didn't stand out, I suppose.
My favourite part, you know, is Antigonus's dream.
Why?
Because even though Hermione tells him to name her child Perdita, which of course means lost, she is instructing him to save her, to find her. Naming her lets her live. Come, poor babe, I have heard but not believed.
The spirits of the dead may walk again.
Did they do that bit well?
Yes.
It can really take you away with it, don't you think? When it's done well. Make you forget yourself a little. Your regrets.
Yes, I suppose it can.
My grandfather committed a great number of Shakespeare's plays to memory. It was impressive. I've always wished I could do the same.
Then why don't you do it?
I don't know. Laziness?
Laziness?
Haven't you heard of it?
I don't believe in it.
No, I suppose not.
Well, I'll leave you to it then.
But what are you going to work on this morning?
Oh, I expect I'll be trying to get an image of DNA that isn't destroyed by the lack of humidity in the camera.
I suppose we need to fix that problem, don't we?
Yes, I suppose we do.
Dear Dr. Franklin,
Don Caspar was a doctoral student in biophysics at Yale. Unlike me, he was actually pretty close to getting his PhD. Not that I was far off. Or, OK, I was. I don't know why it took me so incredibly long. My mother has her theories, but we won't get into those.
My advisor, Simon Dewhurst, recommended I contact you since I'm considering doing the final stage of my doctoral research on the chemical makeup of coal molecules. You are, according to him, the world's expert on the subject. I gather you combine a theoretical and applied approach, and this is precisely what I am hoping to do. So I would be grateful if you would send me some of your scholarship on coal. X-ray images and published articles would be most appreciated.
Dear Mr. Caspar, thank you for your letter. Published articles are published, and therefore you can access them just as well as I can. It might be possible, however, to send X-ray images so long as you assure me you know how to read them. I would prefer to avoid misinterpretations of my work cropping up all over New Haven. I should like to maintain the reputation your Dr. Dewhurst so kindly attributes to me.
Dear Dr. Franklin, I never received the images in the mail, even though I assured you I understood how to read them. could you please resend? It's been over a month, and I'm anxious to finalize this section of my dissertation. Dear Dr. Franklin, I'm so sorry to write again, but I still haven't received the images. I'm afraid I've become a pest. Please forgive me. It would kill me to think you might think badly of me, as I'm such an admirer of your work.
Dear Mr. Casper, I trust you have now received the images?
Dear Dr. Franklin, I have indeed received the images, and I can't thank you enough. They've opened up for me. You've opened up for me a whole new... What I mean is, I've never seen anything like them. I could stare at them for hours, and they still wouldn't reveal all of their secrets. Not that that means I can't read them. I can read them. I just mean that they're beautiful. These shapes within shapes, shapes overlapping, shapes that mean more than what they seem at first glance, but are also beautiful simply for what they are. I think one sees something new each time one looks at truly beautiful things.
Thank you, Mr. Casper. I'm pleased you received the images.
One sees something new each time one looks at truly beautiful things?
Yes, I think so. And so did she. Sometimes she would get away from the lab. I'd arrive in the morning and no one would be there.
Well, I was there.
And then the telephone would ring.
I'm in Switzerland.
What?
Switzerland, I said.
I can't hear you.
I told you I was going hiking this weekend. I'm just going to stay an extra day.
Fine.
Oh, can you hear me?
She would just disappear sometimes. One day here and then gone.
Like a restless ghost.
Oh, it's beautiful here, Gosling. You should have smelled the air at the summit. It was...
You have to speak up. I just
My
can't...
head feels clear for the first time in ages. And I've been doing some really wonderful thinking. I believe I've worked out how to fix the camera. And the Alps seem larger and yet somehow less overwhelming than they have in the past. As though their vastness was made for me. As though the more of something there is to climb, the further I'll get to go. It seems so obvious now. The mountains mean more than what they seem at first glance, but they are also beautiful simply for what they are. You know, I think one sees something new each time one looks at truly beautiful things.
Miss Franklin? Rosalind? Are you there?
But she wasn't there, was she? She was too busy snowshoeing and enjoying things like nature and small woodland creatures.
Didn't she feel that something was at her back? A force greater than she was?
You mean us, Krick?
No, I mean fate, Watson.
What's the difference?
And then she'd come back.
Gosling, more to the left. Oh, I said the left.
I am moving it to the left.
More. You have to move it more. We're simply not aligned.
Don't step into the light, Miss Franklin, please.
Damn it!
You can't move through the beam like that.
If I have to do everything myself, I will. Don't you understand? I will literally go mad if we don't get a better image soon. So let's get it done, Gosling. It's as simple as that.
Doesn't have to be.
What was that?
I said I'm here to help you. I just don't want to...
What, Gosling? Just don't want to what?
I was going to say endanger myself, but I didn't. I could have said put myself in harm's way. Could have said that even though we didn't know for sure yet. I could feel the way that beam cut through my flesh. Instead, I said to her, yesterday's photographs were better. The best yet. Did you see them?
Of course I did.
There was a little crowd around them this morning, marvelling at them, at the detail you captured.
Was there?
Absolutely. They were enthralled. It's quite gratifying, really. You should feel...
It's going to get to the heart of everything, Ray.
But you still need to sleep occasionally, don't you? Or don't you need any?
We can call it a night if you like.
You mean, or why don't I call it a night?
They were really enthralled, were they?
Like chickens clucking around a new bit of food.
Go home, Ray.
So long as you promise not to...
What?
Stay too late. So long as you promise not to stay too late.
Oh, I promise.
You're lying.
Yes.
Did she really do that, Gosling?
All the time.
And you didn't?
I couldn't. It was like speaking bad French to a French person who insists then on speaking in English just to show you're not good enough to speak to her in her own language. That she can walk all over you in any language, anywhere.
She did know a lot of languages.
That's not what I meant.
I know. And then there was the conference in Naples, spring 1951.
Yes, and it was typical enough. Everyone pretended to be terribly interested in everyone else's work. My lecture was on the last day, and the room was nearly empty. I showed a few slides, explained why we felt nucleic acid was worth studying as opposed to protein, and then packed up my things. I was about to leave, but then a young man with really very odd hair blocked my path.
Good to meet you, Dr. Wilkins. I'm Dr. Watson.
Hello, Watson. Can I help you?
It's Dr. Watson, but no matter. The thing is, I was fascinated by your presentation.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Makes me think, more than ever, that the gene's the thing. I mean, we have to get to the bottom of it, discover how it replicates itself. And so we need its structure. Your slides convince me that this can and should be done, that the shape is regular enough that it can be studied.
Yes, I believe it is.
It's just incredibly exciting.
What is?
To be born at the right time. There's an element of fate to it, don't you think? And I don't believe in fate.
You said your name is?
Watson. And I was wondering if maybe I could work with you on nucleic acid at King's. I don't mean to be presumptuous.
That is a bit presumptuous. Have we even met before?
I'm 22. I have my doctorate from Indiana University. I'm currently doing research in Copenhagen on the biochemistry of virus reproduction.
And?
What I'm trying to say is, the photographs from your lab are brilliant. I'd like to learn crystallography.
I'm not even positive that I know what we're talking about.
I want to get in the race, Wilkins.
What race are you referring to, Watson?
For the structure of DNA, of course.
There is no race.
Linus Pauling's on it, out at Caltech.
He doesn't have the sample I have, or the photographs.
Or the photographer.
That's right. Good day, Watson.
Was it the biggest mistake of his life? Without question.
People assume I must feel it was, not taking Jim on and becoming his partner. After all, maybe the two of us would have... Maybe later my name would have rolled off the tongue. Been the answer to questions in the occasional pub quiz. I don't know. What happened, happened.
After our conversation, I approached Lawrence Bragg at the Cavendish, who took me on immediately. I was partnered upon my arrival with a scientist named Francis Crick.
Do you prefer Jim or James? Jim sounds more American to me. Or how about Jimmy?
How about I tell you, and you don't have to keep guessing?
I like that idea.
And I went back to...
Hello, Dr. Wilkins.
Hello, Miss Franklin.
And how was your conference?
I hear from Gosling you're spending some late nights here.
Well, I'm just doing my work, Dr. Wilkins, nothing more.
May I see it?
What?
Your work.
Why?
Well, we're partners, aren't we, Miss Franklin? Aren't we?
Yes, we are.
So let's have it then.
Well, first of all, I fixed the camera.
The humidity is no longer an issue?
It's no longer an issue.
How did you do it?
It was simple, really. I used salt solutions.
And the salt didn't spray the DNA?
No, it didn't. I assured you it wouldn't, and it didn't.
Well, I'm very impressed.
There's no need to condescend.
I wasn't. I am seriously impressed.
But that's ridiculous. You shouldn't be. I used the simplest of chemist techniques.
Whatever you did, it was wonderful.
What's wrong with you, Dr. Wilkins? You look flushed.
I do feel a little warm.
Maybe you should sit down.
Yes.
All right, that should do it. I'm sure you're ready now to get back to work.
Yes. All right. But how can we get anything done if she's constantly making me feel as though I'm being impolite to her? No, worse, offensive.
I think she's just settling in.
Did you know Linus Pauling's on DNA now, Gosling?
I didn't.
We really must push forward.
And we will.
All I've been is kind to her.
So maybe kindness isn't working.
Kindness always works with women, Gosling. I'm a trifle concerned for you if you don't know that.
Gosling, could you get that?
Right. Dr. Wilkins, chocolates you shouldn't have.
No, therefore...
Yeah, I know who they're for.
What is it? Oh, yes, Wilkins, can I help you? What's that you're holding?
Can I talk to you, Miss Franklin?
About what?
Privately.
Well, all right, but quickly. Please excuse us, Gosling.
Oh, right. I'll just go for a little walk.
So?
I got you these.
What are they?
Chocolates. I brought them for you.
Why?
Why?
Yes, why?
I guess because I think things between us haven't got off on a good foot. On the right foot. I wanted to...
We've already started again once, haven't we? How often will we have to do this?
It's just that... I'd like to have an easier relationship with you.
But we're not here to have a relationship, Dr. Wilkins.
I didn't mean a relationship in the... Well, I meant a working relationship. An easier partnership.
Was your wife cold?
I beg your pardon?
Was she cold?
I don't know to what you're referring.
You do, I think. After all, how many wives have you had?
One.
An American who refused to return with you to England after the birth of your son.
Yes.
So, was she cold?
She could be.
And I'm not her. We're not married. You don't have to try to win me over. In fact, you shouldn't try to win me over because you won't succeed. I'm not that kind of woman.
I'm just trying to...
What?
Be your friend.
I don't want to be your friend, Dr. Wilkins.
You don't?
No.
Well then, enjoy the chocolates.
Dear Dr. Franklin, I hope this isn't out of turn, but I wanted to let you know how immensely helpful your images have been. The work is going well. Incredibly well, actually. This morning, I realized that for once I didn't feel plagued by lack of direction, by this persistent question about what to do with my life and whether I've made the right choices. I have made the right choices. I just love... does the X-ray camera ever seem like it's just an extension of your own eye? As though you and you alone possess the superhuman powers that allow you to see into the heart of things, to understand the nature of the world as though it's a secret no one else is meant to know? I do. And I think you do too.
Dear Mr. Casper, thank you for your letter. And yes, I do share some of your ways of thinking. It's nice to hear that one isn't alone.
And then Wilkins gave a lecture and referenced his DNA work.
I didn't say it quite like that.
He announced to great applause that all the X-ray patterns he'd made indicated a clear central X, a helix, and it wasn't pretty. The aftermath, I mean, not the helix. The helix was beautiful.
Flushed with pride, are we?
Excuse me?
X-ray patterns you made, Wilkins?
It was just a manner of speaking. Everyone knows who's on the team, that there is a team.
Well, I don't know which X-ray patterns you were looking at, but in the ones I took, it's certainly not clear that there is a helix.
It's like you're unwilling to see it.
Dr. Wilkins, I was told before I came to King's that I would be in charge of X-ray diffraction. Given that, and given the credit you seem bent on grabbing all for yourself when you deserve none of it, I would suggest, and would certainly prefer, if you went back to optics and your microscopes. A field no one will begrudge you because no one really cares about it.
Why are you doing this?
I simply don't understand why you would state something, why you would tell a crowd of people, no less, that something is true when it's not.
It might be true.
It's self-aggrandizement at the cost of any kind of integrity.
You want our funding to continue, don't you? Don't you?
I'm just not terribly impressed by you, is the thing.
Oh.
You're just not... You don't command my respect.
That's it.
I agree. That's it.
No one has ever spoken to me in this way. And I don't deserve it.
Neither do I.
Neither did I. Not that it mattered.
Would you look at this, Gosling? How do you like that? I mean, how do you like that? Well?
What is it?
Just look at it, Ray. Christ!
I see 2 strands.
Yes.
One is longer than the other.
Yes.
What?
Don't you see? They're both DNA. It exists in 2 forms.
A form and B form. The hydrated, longer one was B, and the shorter, replicable one, A. It turned out that, before, they'd been looking at one on top of the other, like a man and woman making love, at that point when one body is indistinguishable from the other. It had made them virtually impossible to study. But now Rosalind had discovered how to separate man and woman, how to brush them off, get them out of bed, and really see them, naked before her. This achievement alone secured her place in history.
Her place in history?
Well, it should have.
And its significance wasn't lost on Wilkins.
Could you please ask Miss Franklin if she would mind terribly if I were to work with her on the B form of DNA? I have some new samples, and I think we should collaborate.
Miss Franklin, Dr. Wilkins would like to know if you might consider...
Please tell him that I will not collaborate, and I don't appreciate his desire to infringe on my material.
She says she will not collaborate.
And why is that precisely?
He knows perfectly well.
She says you know perfectly...
My lord, what's there to be so afraid of?
He says, my lord...
I'm not afraid of anything.
She says she's not afraid of anything.
I mean, I simply will not have my data interpreted for me.
I've really had enough of this.
I agree.
I mean, I can't take it anymore. What's more, your antipathy is distracting everyone in the lab.
We'll work separately then. I'll take the B form and you can have A.
Maybe I'd like B.
Morris, you're being ridiculous.
Fine. A it is.
And so Rosalind did her work, or tried to, painstakingly, paying attention to every detail, every discrepancy.
You see, Rosalind didn't hypothesize the way Krick and I did. She proved things. And proving things, as all scientists know, isn't, well, for one thing, it isn't fast.
Either the structure is a big helix, or a smaller helix consisting of several chains. The phosphates are also clearly on the outside and not within.
Did you hear that Linus Pauling's working on DNA again?
I didn't.
Well, he is.
Oh, good for him.
I think Wilkins wants to speed things up. Make a model. The others are making models, you know.
If you'd like to take the day off and build a model, Ray, you're welcome to do so. I'd suggest a train or an automobile. Those tend to reflect reality fairly well.
You see, to Rosalind, making a model was tantamount to negligence. She needed to do all the calculations first, to sit in a dimly lit room and do the maths. So what ended up happening was that she and Wilkins both sat in separate dimly lit rooms doing maths. Unsurprisingly,
Wilkins got lonely.
I wasn't at all lonely.
And so he'd visit his friend, Francis Crick, in Cambridge at the Cavendish. A new scientist had just joined the lab there, too. Me.
Another pint, then?
Oh, why not?
Yes, why not? This is practically a celebration. I don't think I've seen you in, months now? You've been neglecting me, Morris.
I know. Tell me what you've been up to. Still on those hemoglobins, Francis?
But we're so enjoying hearing about your work.
Yes, we know all about our own work.
There's no fun in that.
It's nice to be here, I must say.
She's really that bad?
Worse.
The Jews really can be very ornery.
You're telling me.
Is she very overweight?
Why do you ask?
He imagines that she's overweight, the kind of woman who barrels over you with the force of a train.
Or a Mack truck.
No, she's not like that. No, she's like...
To Watson and Krick, the shape of something suggested the most detailed analysis of its interior workings, as though by looking at something, you could determine how it came to be, how it gets through each day.
Tell us more about these recent photographs.
Well, they're getting clearer. Every day I think I see more. And then I wonder if my mind's playing tricks on me.
So you really think it's a helix?
The thing is, she's keeping me from my own work. And she has all the best equipment. Not to mention the best samples. She's hoarding everything.
It looks like a helix, Morris.
What? Yes, a helix.
You should build a model.
Oh, no. No, she's opposed completely to models. She doesn't think there's any way they could reflect reality at this point. Mere pointless speculation.
Is speculation always pointless?
I think as far as Rosie's concerned.
She doesn't sound particularly rosy to me.
Does she know you all still call her that behind her back?
Are you kidding? She'd have us skinned.
I can't wait to meet her.
Oh, trust me. You can wait.
He didn't have to wait long. That winter, King's held a colloquium on nucleic acid structure. I made coffee at the colloquium. That was my contribution. It was January 1952.
As we all know, a nucleic acid is a macromolecule composed of chains of monomeric nucleotides. This nucleic acid, which I'll shorthand as DNA, exists in two forms.
You know, Francis, I wonder how she'd look
slide.
if she took off her glasses and did something novel with her hair.
You may be onto something, Watson.
All right, there it is.
I mean,
Look
she could
closely
possibly be
at it.
attractive if she took even the mildest interest in her clothes. But appearances aside, she is not engaging.
No, not in the least.
If you examine it, you can see the transition from A form to B form in
When we
this
shook hands,
hydrated
her handshake
sample.
was far too firm. I mean, there is nothing gentle, nothing remotely tender about her. She is a cipher where a woman should be. That said, she's not fat.
So busy analyzing the speaker, they didn't hear what she was saying. That she stated quite clearly that,
Based on these calculations, it's clear that the phosphates must exist on the outside of the molecule. There is no question that this is the case.
And when Watson and Krick made their model a week or so later, everyone at King's was invited up to see it. After all, it was based on our work.
Wilkins, what do you make of it?
Where's the water in the model?
It's nice to see you too, Miss Franklin.
DNA absorbs at least 10 times more water than that.
Was that right?
I don't see how a molecule, if it's as you imagined it, could hold together.
How so?
The phosphates have to be on the outside. Furthermore, the X-ray data hasn't proved that the molecule is indeed helical.
Now, you just don't want to admit that it's right.
It's not right, Watson. It would never hold together. Not like that. Perhaps if you told me what you were working on a few weeks ago, I could have helped you with it.
All right, old boy.
But you didn't do that, did you? And why not? Because you knew perfectly well it wasn't yours to ask about.
Morris.
Be quiet, Jim.
Well, even if it is wrong, I don't really see what the big deal is.
Then perhaps you should return to your country, where theft and burglary are upheld as virtues. In fact, it's how America came to be, isn't it? In Britain, we don't actually believe in turning our sinners into saints.
Hey, if you are angry with Paul Revere, don't take it out on me. I am just trying to do some science here.
Science?
Well, you're not trying in the right way, and you're too young. And your hair needs attention.
I am not too young.
For my part, I quite like his hair. I think it's got character.
it was a disaster, an embarrassment. The model, I mean. The Cavendish ordered Watson and Krick to stop working on DNA.
An oddly satisfying disaster, wouldn't you say, Ray?
I would, Dr. Wilkins. It was oddly satisfying.
What bastards those King's boys can be, right? The way they condescended to us.
Boys and girls.
Right. I don't know how he puts up with her. They make quite a pair. I mean, I love him dearly, but even in our school days, Wilkins was a patronizing prat.
Oh, come on. We'd be gloating too if it had been the reverse.
It will be, one day. There's not a chance I'm going back to hemoglobin diffraction patterns.
I don't blame you.
Mother, you really don't have to worry about me. I'm just fine. I always have been, and nothing is different now. Yes, I'm getting enough sleep. No, I'm not too lonely.
Miss Franklin?
Oh, I've got to go. All right, yes, Friday night. Bye.
Miss Franklin,
What is it, Gosling?
you have to see it. It's kind of, well, amazing.
Show me. Oh. It's a perfect X. It's a helix.
I know.
Gosling.
It's incredible.
I've never seen anything like it.
It's certainly a helix. The B form is certainly a helix.
Photograph 51.
Photograph 51.
And she stood there, staring at it, as though she were looking in a mirror, but was suddenly unrecognizable to herself.
Did any chimes go off in her head? Was there any singing?
And then she put it away.
Shouldn't we show it to Wilkins?
Don't you want to celebrate, Gosling? Let's celebrate.
Celebrate what? I see no cause for celebration.
You can have a little fun, can't you, Morris? After all, we know how you like your games and jokes and things.
Do I?
Why don't you give us a little speech?
Excuse me?
Go on, then.
A speech? About what?
Oh, be creative, Morris. You can do that. Come up with something out of thin air, can't you? Oh, I don't know. Why don't you tell us about the fondest moment in your scientific career?
The fondest moment?
Ray, does it seem he's just repeating things after me?
What is it precisely you want me to do?
Just do something, Morris. Something. You never commit to anything and it torments me.
Does it?
Yes, I can't abide it.
I think Dr. Wilkins is
Oh,
just
come
trying
on,
to...
Ray. Whose side are you on?
I'm not on a side. I'm not on a side.
You're behaving a bit like a banshee, Miss Franklin.
Just celebrate with us.
But what are we
It's
celebrating?
amazing. Really.
Have some faith in me, Morris. There is something to celebrate. Take a leap of faith.
As though you would ever do that. No, it all has to be solved and resolved. There can be no room for error. No room for humanity, really. That's what you leave out of your equations, Miss Franklin.
That night I slipped Wilkins the photograph. I did think he had a right to see it. I knew it was the best photograph we had.
Part 1 of Photograph 51 by Anna Ziegler. Episode 2's out right now, plus 2 bonus interviews. Please subscribe to the Relativity Series wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure to leave a comment so we know how we're doing. We really appreciate it. The Relativity Series is produced by LA Theater Works. Lead funding for the Relativity Series is provided by the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation, bridging science and the arts in the modern world.